Today we're going to be taking a look at the Artificer class, so get ready to dive into some Unearthed Arcana here on Rolling with Advantage. Today we're going to be looking at the Artificer class, and before we do, a quick disclaimer that this is playtest material, so be sure to get your DM's consent before bringing this to the table. With the Artificer, not only do we get a new class, we get two new subclasses in the Artillerist and the Alchemist, as well as a new spell that is Arcane Weapon. Now, Arcane Weapon is a very interesting thing, and let's take a look at it first. It's a first level spell that as a bonus action, I can add this to an effect to my weapon that gives me an extra d6 damage, and I get to choose what type of damage that is, and I can even change that damage type later. This is an incredibly powerful spell, and to be honest, the first time I looked at it, I thought this is completely overpowered and needs a nerf, because if you look at another spell similar to it, which is Divine Favor, which Paladins and War Domain Clerics get, that spell is a d4 for the same effect, and it's always radiant damage. You could make an argument that, hey, this is a signature spell for the class, and we should try to build around it. I personally think it might be just a little too powerful, but let's just build around it and see what we can do. So if we look at the Arcane Weapon, let's say, all right, level 1, I want to build around this spell. We look at the class features for the Artificer, and we go over here to proficiencies and see that he can pick up hand crossbow and heavy crossbow. Well, the easiest thing to do is just to pick up a heavy crossbow, slap Arcane Weapon on it, and at level 1, I'm swinging or shooting a d10 plus a d6 for Arcane Weapon plus whatever my modifier is. You're looking at 15 to 19 damage at level 1 with a heavy crossbow. That's really, really good. If you want to take this to the next level, we could say, hey, let's use a variant human build, pick up Crossbow Expert, enchant a hand crossbow. Now that's going to fire for 2d6 plus our modifier, and then I can use my bonus action on subsequent turns to attack again and again and again. At level 1, getting multi-attacks for 2d6 plus your modifier, that's really strong. Well, let's build around that. Here's the problem. If we were to do the build with Crossbow Expert and Hand Crossbow, we're going to be wanting to use our bonus action to shoot our second shot with Hand Crossbow. When we look at the issue that we've got is that the subclasses for Artificer is Artillerist and Alchemist. Artillerist, we want to make these little turrets. We interact with those turrets by using a bonus action. Well, we don't want to do that because we want to take another shot with our hand crossbow. Or we could pick Alchemist and get the homunculus pet, and we interact with that pet with our bonus action. So again, it just isn't going to be the most efficient thing to do if we want to do the hand crossbow build. If you're looking to do something like that, what I would do is start as an Artificer, take 1 to 2 levels in this, and then go into Ranger or go into Fighter and make a crossbow build that way, where you're just kind of dipping into Artificer for Arcane Weapon and then moving over from there to make your Archer. That's how I would build it if we're going to do it that way. Now, what I wanted to do is take a look at building a class that's a little different, and what this is that let's take a look at making an Artificer that would be built around this idea of artillery. Now, depending on what subclass you get different types of spells, and this you get Thunder Wave and Shatter and Fireball. So this guy can really, bring the burn and bring the pain. And I like the idea that the artillerist can make these turrets. That's really cool that you can create a magical turret that can kind of move around, and you can, depending on which type of turret, you can do different types of effects. So think of this as a class that can really fortify a position. And let's take that idea of fortifying a position and let's run with it. So when we go over to our spells, let's say I want to build a class or a character that really fortifies an area. I like the idea of Guidance as one of the best spells in the game. Mending just kind of goes with the whole idea of Artificer. Arcane Weapon, I can still do this with my heavy crossbow. I'm going to come back to this one. Grease is a great way to kind of, mess around with the terrain of where you're putting your turret and stuff like that. But the spell that I really want and I can't have, if I look at my cantrips, is I can't get Mold Earth. Just imagine if I could create a ditch around my turret and then just sit back there and kind of create a sniper's nest with a turret with your heavy crossbow. So, now we're thinking, all right, so for race choices, maybe we need to pick up a variant human, pick up magic initiate, but here's another option. Let's look at high elf. High elf is a race that's great because I get my +2 to dexterity, which I'm going to want if I'm going to be using my heavy crossbow. And I come down here. I love the fact that I get perception. Also, I get, for being a high elf, I get +1 to intelligence, which works perfect for being this class. But I also get to choose a cantrip. And lo and behold, there's Mold Earth. So this is what we do. We build a high elf Artificer, and what he's going to do is he's going to be our guy that controls the battlefield. He'll be our controller, and as we level him up, you'll kind of see with the different turrets. I think with that, you could really, you want to make camp with this guy. He's got the turrets, he's got Mold Earth. I think you could have a lot of fun with this. Now, to make this even more fun, you also have this thing called Infusions. Now, the Artificer can infuse different items, and you get to choose 3 of these at level 2. Enchanting a weapon, that's really good. But I like this idea of getting an Alchemy Jug, and also, Cloak of the Manta Ray. It's a good little thing that can kind of stick in your pocket in case you need to breathe underwater. But Alchemy Jug is interesting because this gives us poisons we could put in there, acid, maybe oil if you want to further this whole, we're going to mess around with the battlefield and create like some fire effects or something. A lot of fun that you can do with this. Now, the limitation on the infusions is I can only have 2 of these up at once at this level. Later we can get up to 3 or 4, but you can only have a couple of these up. So I think you always have the Alchemy Jug. There's just so many tricks that you can pull with having all these different types of liquids. I think it'd be very fun to play. So a lot of good choices that we have here for the artillerist Artificer. So even at level 3, this is just kind of the very beginnings of, my thoughts of this. We get medium armor, so we put on some splint mail. We have a 16 AC. I've got my heavy crossbow, dealing a D10, plus my arcane weapon gives me another D6 on top of that. But what this guy's really wanting to do is set up this fortification with the turrets. I think that would be a lot of fun to play. So this is my first take at an artillerist, and from here we just kind of level them straight up into Artificer. We'll look at multi-class builds another day, but this is kind of the way that I would build this, is with a high elf, picking up Mold Earth, kind of digging a ditch around your camp, throwing up a turret, and just, creating a defensive fortification. I think this could be a lot of fun. Now, roleplay wise, I had another idea I want to share. Let's go back and take a look. So with the infusion ability, this is something that DMs and players should be aware of. So when you infuse an item, let's say you make a magic weapon. You infuse a weapon to be magical. All right, so you go make a weapon magical, you go sell that weapon, and then the next day you make another weapon magical, which will kind of make this one no longer magical, so you kind of pulled one over on somebody in town and sold them something that's not. This could be a lot of fun. It may be problematic, but it could be a lot of the fun of a character who basically goes into town, sells a bunch of fake wares, a gypsy-style play, and, roguish, and then leaves town. That's very interesting. And if you really want to run with that idea, they even get access to disguise self. So he could disguise himself, he could go sell his wares, ditch the infusion later. That could be a very fun PC, or if you're a DM, a nasty NPC that your players will hate if they keep selling them magic items that are no good. That could be pretty interesting. Just an idea. So be aware of the limitations of the infused weapon. I just first look at it for general feedback. I think that we need more options for the infusions to come. I know they have more Artificer content coming. I'd like to see more subclasses. I'd really like to see more infusions. But these are just some of my first thoughts. So if anyone out there has played this version of the Artificer, not the old one, but the new one, I would like to hear some feedback. What do you like about the Artillerist and the Alchemist? Do you find Arcane Weapon to be too powerful? I think at first level it just seems really good. So yeah, I would like some feedback. So please leave some messages below. I'd love to hear what your experience is playing this. What are the pros and the cons? What cool combos have you come up with? I'm going to be brewing a lot of ideas on multi-classing this to kind of see what we can come up with. But today, this is just first take, first option of, hey, let's take a look and see what we can do with this and have some fun with it. So if you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, keep rolling with advantage. Thanks.